Robbie.
Jordan.
I know. That's why I was like, if I wasn't here to do it.
Might have some audience questions too. Nothing too crazy.
I had like 4 spells today, so I'm starting myself as this album.
This is key. I'm sorry, can you?
Yeah, sorry.
Let me know when.
Do the design. I want
You don't deliver that. That is Jordan. I am here in Des Moines, Iowa. Des Moines, Iowa. We just got here about an hour or two ago, and we are already hitting the ground running. We are at a field office with Bernie Sanders' campaign, specifically volunteers. Audio good? Okay. Specifically Bernie volunteers. I've already heard them for the last 15, 20 minutes, phone banking, and we have one volunteer with us named Robbie, so we'll be talking to you. Before I get to that, I'm only on my phone to give you the news, because some people don't like when I'm on my phone. But we are in Iowa, but 4 days away from the caucus, but there's a lot of other polls coming out that definitely show a surge for Bernie Sanders. So, and you guys yell at me if I'm too loud, and I can quiet them. Okay. So, just saw a poll. I mean, yesterday there was a poll in Texas of all places, where Bernie was down. One poll had him down 2 to Joe Biden. Another poll had him down 6, I believe. But a new poll that just came out, which is pretty scary if you're Joe Biden, I'm just going to be honest, has Bernie Sanders up 15, has Bernie Sanders up, has Bernie Sanders up 15 points in California. 15 points in California, he's up on the former Vice President of the United States. Let that sink in. I always say, take a lot of these polls with a grain of salt, but most of these polls, whether it be the Iowa polls that have been coming in the last few days, New Hampshire Super Tuesday, Nevada, California, either show Bernie Sanders on top or Bernie Sanders closing the gap by a lot. And in the poll I'm referencing in California, Bernie Sanders is up 13 points. Oh, no, excuse me. The poll I'm referencing in Texas, Bernie Sanders is up 13 points in just a few months. So there's a thing in politics called a firewall. So, Hillary Clinton in 2016, her firewall was the South. Well, Joe Biden's firewall is Texas. If he does not crush in Texas, that's a big problem for him. So we'll get into that stuff later. But remember, as you're watching, press the like button under the video stream. The more people that press the like button, the more people that will see the live stream. So, Robbie, tell me where you're from. What brought you here, and kind of take people into the field office, like what has been going on here the last few days. I know a lot of phone banking. Is it, are you reaching the people you want to reach? Are you getting a lot of no answers? What's it like for the day-to-day here?
Yeah, so I've been in West Des Moines my whole life. Yeah, I love it here, and it's always kind of cool to see the political circus come to town every 4 years, and you'll be downtown and you'll see like Chris Matthews and all the pundits. So I like that. And as far as just the energy around here, it just seems like there's been a surge. We've just seen Sanders rise in the polls, and then I think we're just starting to really see things calcify here. So. Which is not an excuse to kind of, sit back and relax, because we're hitting this thing on all cylinders. We're really getting out there, trying to reach the people we need to reach, phone bank, canvassing, get people to come out, but also just to, participate in the caucus process.
So I don't, I understand certain strategies you can't get into, but the media, I don't think, has really looked into this that closely, but Bernie campaign in general, particularly in Iowa, one of the biggest strategies is to reach people who don't traditionally vote. So kind of like expanding the electorate rather than just trying to reach people who already have traditionally voted. Can you kind of talk about, I mean, you don't have to like give away the playbook, but like how are you guys going about reaching people that might not particularly vote, and are you getting responses from people that say like, oh no, I don't vote, but they're expressing interest in voting for the first time?
Yeah, well, I personally just make the case to them like this and this is also true for myself, so I mostly speak for myself, but we have the two sides, right? Democrat, Republican, but which of them are going to materially change and affect your life? For the longest time, it's basically been neither, and we've seen failures systemically. These are the people that are supposed to serve us and not the other way around. And if you look at Bernie Sanders, he's someone that has been a champion of the working class and the poor and day-to-day people since day one. So that's kind of what I tell people. And as far as, getting out those people to the caucus, it's just been making that case to them and telling.
Do you get responses like they're all bums, they're all liars? I'm not, I never vote. And like, how do you respond to people who basically are so cynical, not because Bernie's bad, but just like because politicians in general are full of shit? How do you break through to those people?
Yeah, I mean, I just straight up tell them like, that was me. And I understand why you feel that way. But if you look at his track record, look at the people, not only that like him, but the people that hate him, that should tell you everything you need to know about who he is.
Speaking of the people that hate him, we just got here, so I haven't seen the ads yet, but there's now ads. There was a $700,000 spend against him by Democracy for Israel or some group. Joe Biden has a super PAC that I know has some, I don't know if they're attacking Bernie, but they definitely are on TV favoring him. But what's interesting is this group dropped $700,000 against Bernie, and in the same 24 hours, Bernie's campaign raised $1.3 million. So it seems like the outside, dark money, usual establishment money is actually being surpassed by small dollar money, which is very unusual in politics.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we need to win, and we're going to win. And I think it's actually been a relatively tame campaign season, even against Bernie. But, it's just a foreshadowing of what's to come in the general, and we just got to hit it hard and fight back when we can.
So not just with the phone banking, but you guys have, I guess, in your arsenal, you have Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib is coming into town, Congresswoman Omar, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal. You have Michael Moore in town. They're going all over, not just Des Moines. I mean, you got a lot of like heavy hitters. Obviously, Senator Sanders himself stuck in Washington on jury duty. But when you're making calls, I've heard already some people mentioning to, Iowa, oh, do you know Congresswoman X is coming, this and that. Is it to try and get them to come to those events as like get their feet in the door to these events with these Congress people, and maybe, at the event, you kind of sell them on voting for Bernie? What's the strategy when calling and referencing the events with Congresswoman Jayapal, Tlaib, and those things? Yeah,
so, I mean, these are a lot of progressive voices, right? And I think the appeal there would just be to more so, like, people who might, they're definitely going to caucus on Monday night, but they may be split. They may say, oh, I like Warren, I maybe like, Klobuchar or something like that. So the idea there is just to, say these are the people who are standing behind Bernie, and if you like them, you will probably like Bernie. So,
and I'll bring it up. Obviously, you're not like high up in the Bernie command, you're a volunteer, but there's some dealings in the back rooms going on right now. Amy Klobuchar has publicly said, I don't want to make any deals. I don't want I'm not telling my volunteers to, if I don't meet the 15, if you don't know how it works, there's the first go around, the first vote, and then if a candidate like Amy Klobuchar doesn't make 15% threshold on the first vote at these caucuses, then her supporters are allowed to vote for somebody else. So the second ballot, which becomes the final results, actually could sway the election. So it could sway it either way. I mean, Joe Biden, he might not win on the first ballot, but if enough Amy Klobuchar supporters vote for Joe Biden on the second ballot, that could tip him over to win. But on the opposite side, the same thing could be said for Andrew Yang voters, Tulsi Gabbard voters, possibly Warren voters, going over to Bernie if their candidate doesn't win on the first ballot. So it's kind of, candidates are publicly saying, no, of course not. But some of them are subtly being like Andrew Yang publicly said, not like telling his supporters, yeah, go to Bernie, but kind of wink and a nod like they'll go to Bernie. Does that factor into anything you guys are doing?
Yes. Yeah. So to followers in and outside of Iowa, yeah, you know how insane and strange the caucus process is. And I'd just like to say we'd love to have you, especially if your candidate doesn't make it through the first round by ability. Yeah, as far as kind of the nitty-gritty, like horse trading and all that, like, I'll just say this to people. The entire conversation is shaped around terminology pioneered by Bernie Sanders. So when thinking about who to go to in the second, third round, think about who it's all centered around, who's driven the conversation, and who has really shaped the way that we're starting to think about some of these issues, whether it be Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, 20% worker ownership in publicly owned companies. These things are huge. They're necessary, and they're what we need to win, and they're what we need to beat Donald Trump with. So, yeah, I'd say that is kind of my sell for second, third ballot candidates.
And remember, guys, smash the like button. It's the thumbs up button right under the live stream. The more people that press the like button, I know I'm a broken record, but it really works. If you press the like button, it'll get the viewership up. Also, reporting in the trenches ain't cheap. We do not have the budget of CNN. Thank God we don't have the budget of CNN, because we'd have to answer to their corporate puppet masters. Statuscoup.com/join. Sign up. We've had a huge increase in new members the last few days. We've got to keep that going. Statuscoup.com/join. Join us for as low as $5 a month. I want to ask you, you like, what are you, like 20-something?
Yeah, 26.
26. I always like to ask people, why are you personally doing this? Because it's not like, some volunteering is like you go for a few hours to a soup kitchen and you feel good and you don't do it again for a couple months. This, the volunteers are coming here and a lot of them are working around the clock. So obviously there's personal stakes involved. You will personally be, in some cases, slight benefit, in some cases have your life completely changed if Bernie won the nomination or the presidency. For you personally, what got you so hooked to Bernie's policies, and how would he help you and your family?
Yeah, so honestly, I don't have a huge family of my own right now, so it's a lot of his policies, and I have a job, so I'm very lucky. But
isn't that such a bad standard for America? I have a job, so yeah.
And I'm sitting all right financially, but that's more than a lot of people can say. And I think it's less of something that affects me personally and just something that I hadn't seen in politics before. So, yeah, let me try and think. Jeez. I was 18. Yeah, I would have voted. Yeah, I voted for Obama 2012. So that was my first time voting in the federal. And then, just seeing Bernie in 2016, I just remember hearing about him in a civics class as the lone vote against something several times, right? And I was thinking, oh, who's that guy? Like, I don't know. And I didn't really know until I learned about his original campaign for the presidency in 2016. And it was something so unique, and it just hit me like, this is what's missing. Like, this is the dialogue that's missing from the American political conversation. And yeah, I guess that's why.
I would be derelict in my duties not to ask. I mean, I'm already getting my phone like blown up by activists and canvassers being like, there's disinformation going on, and this campaign's like doing shady things. I haven't verified it. I can't text and drive. But are you guys seeing any shenanigans as far as, obviously not from your side, but like people getting misinformation on where to go, or basically some banana peels being thrown by other campaigns?
I'm not really at that high. I mean, I'm just a volunteer, so I wouldn't be able to say on that as much as some other people. I haven't seen anything personally like that, but yeah.
Last question for you. So I think it's like the mentality, it's different. I know you weren't like really involved in 2016, but in 2016, I mean, he was a serious underdog, and it was like David versus Goliath. Here, it's kind of like the mentality's different. I guess you could call him a front runner. He's raised more money than all the other candidates, small dollar. But do you guys, how do you guys operate psychologically as far as, well, he's leading the polls right now, but like you were saying, we can't rest on our laurels. So the communication between volunteers here is, has there been like those pep speeches like, nah, we're 10 points down, go, don't think we won this?
Well, okay, so little backstory. I was in Idaho at the time of the 2016 caucus there, and in my district, Bernie had about 80% of the votes there, so Hillary almost didn't have viability, which blew my mind because I expected the opposite. And so that's when I was just like, wow, okay, this guy has some good ideas. As far as things down on the ground here, yeah, I would say if there was another lesson to be learned from 2016, it's that polling is not as ironclad as we thought it was. And we are definitely taking that to heart. I think everyone kind of like, got butterflies in their stomach when they saw those poll numbers, which are good for us. But we really can't rest on those, and we just got to hit it with everything we got.
Thanks, Ben. Let you get back to volunteering. Never say I'm just a volunteer. That's the most important job. If anyone else wants to come, we're live, so I'll just... There you go. What's your name?
Parker.
Parker. So something interesting to me, he said, and I made this point on my live stream yesterday, polls are one thing, but to me what's more important than polls is like what you see in the streets. It's kind of like in the general election, polls showed Hillary Clinton was beating Donald Trump, but all I saw was Donald Trump lawn signs when I was going around the country. Yep. So like those things matter. I mean, I just got here, but can you kind of describe like what you guys have been seeing? Iowa's big. I mean, we're only in Des Moines, but like, what is kind of the energy in the streets? Are you seeing a lot of Bernie signage? Are you seeing more organizers coming from you guys? I mean, just where you've been.
Yeah. So I've definitely seen a lot more organizers for Bernie than any other canvass. And part of that is obviously just that I'm here with the other volunteers. But I did have the very fortunate job of going around to deliver signs, which was a lot of fun. But we are really starting to overtake on those signs, and there is sort of a lot of energy. When I've been canvassing and going to just random doors, you find a Bernie supporter, and they're so excited. And it really is sort of a blessing in my mind, because a lot of us really, really care, and you can engage in these really awesome conversations that I haven't had the chance to have with some supporters of other presidential candidates. It feels like a lot in this to win, and I do feel like that energy really has shown through. Like, you can really see it.
And by the way, I forgot to mention, this is a super chat. If you're feeling super, I'm not looking at my phone, so I can't read your super chat, but we appreciate the support. I want to ask you about that. I mean, you don't have to blow up any people's spot, but like, I mean, I've been around the block, so I've interviewed some older folk that tend to be more like, we can't have nice things and, electability and these things. What has been, in your experience, maybe you knock on a door of somebody who's a Biden supporter or Klobuchar or Pete, are they open to what you're describing, or are you getting a lot of that kind of older mentality of like, it's just not, in my heart, yes, but we can't win with someone like that? And what is the rebuttal to that for you?
Sure. So I haven't seen it. I wouldn't say older. I've seen that a lot of elderly, more seasoned folks are pretty open to Bernie, in my experience. And again, I have a much smaller sample size, so I can't speak definitively.
That's a good point. There's a lot of older progressives. Including in my audience. I shouldn't say older, but like you said.
Yeah. But I have not met a single person from a single campaign that isn't willing to support Bernie if he is the nominee. And same with all the Bernie folks. Everyone is willing to take on Trump. I think that is the biggest priority for everyone. There are some people that are obviously going to be resistant. And so usually what I talk to them about is that I do feel Bernie is the most electable. And my favorite statistic to use is we have a lot of districts, not actually in Iowa, but just across the country that voted Obama, Trump. And Bernie is leading donations from those districts, and those are the voters that we lost. And so in that sense, he really is one of the best positions. But then you think about his grassroots army, you think about the fact that he is leading independents, he's leading Republicans, he won a lot of the Midwest last year. And so for me, I think the electability argument kind of falls away once I sort of engage with someone for 5 minutes and kind of go through my feelings on it. And then I really try and just go forward with climate change. A lot of voters here have been hit by climate change. I was from California growing up, and we got hit by climate change really hard. We used to have these wild thunderstorms. And then I guess when I was in 6th grade, I don't think there's been a single thunderstorm where I'm from, just right outside of San Francisco. And so it's very apparent, like there's not any more flying bugs when you are on the I-5. Like you used to be able to drive up and your windshield would just get covered with dead bugs, which of course is a little sad, but nowadays you won't even get a single bug. And so it's just obvious that climate is happening. I try and share that story, and then I really dive into Bernie is the climate candidate. He is consistently rated first when on the scorecards by Greenpeace and Sunrise Movement and a lot of the other organizations, and he's also been getting the endorsements from those organizations. And so usually when I go through that, anyone that's sort of concerned about electability or that he would turn off people, as I go through the statistics and then I really go into climate change, because everyone with a kid cares about climate change. Everyone that is a farmer cares about climate change. And it really is, I feel, one of the universal issues that a lot of people are worried about. It really is starting to affect people at a very local level. Like you can just have a conversation that it's raining less or it's snowing. In Seattle, we had Snowmageddon last year, and it was something crazy. Like we got almost 10 times the normal amount of snow per year in a single week period. It was sort of part of that big polar vortex. And so sort of with those statistics and with the climate change, a lot of the worries about electability I've found have sort of fallen away. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're right on Bernie, but they are much more willing to look at him not only in the general, but as a second choice for that realignment in Iowa that you were explaining earlier.
And I'm not being rude. For those of you who think I'm not paying attention and I'm only looking at my phone, I'm looking at my phone because, speaking of climate change, 9 progressive groups, including Sunrise Movement, are joining forces to get out the vote for Bernie. They're calling themselves People Power for Bernie. They will be in many states such as Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, Texas, California, Pennsylvania, and New York. Let me read the list of organizations. I mean, you might be part of some of them. So Center for Popular Democracy Action, People's Action, Dream Defenders, so that's the Dreamers, the Sunrise Movement, Make the Road Action, Our Revolution, Democratic Socialists of America, Progressive Democrats of America, and Student Action. So that is, you were talking about the advantage of on the ground. You're talking about 9 organizations. I can't speak I could speak to our revolution and Sunrise Movement. The other ones I don't know as well, but these are groups with their own really successful organizing apparatus, particularly Sunrise Movement. You would never have seen a climate crisis town hall on any cable news network if not for the Sunrise Network and their great canvassing, organizing, stomping, and screaming outside Pelosi's office and McConnell's office. So this is the advantage Bernie Sanders' campaign has. You have people power. So when they say, you know, they got money, we got people, they literally mean you got 9 major grassroots organizations, all, you know, with special missions, different categories surrounding around Bernie. I would add, not that I work for the campaign or anything, but like, how about tell them, hey, Trump was just caught on hot tape saying he was scared of Bernie. He didn't want Hillary to pick Bernie in 2016.
Yeah, I think that is a really, really good just like tagline. We are thinking about like who is going to draw people away from Bernie, and there was also, it's sort of a hard argument to make where Trump has been like, I think socialism is going to be a hard thing to fight, but then he's also calling every single Democrat a crazy socialist. But I think like Bernie is focused on ending people's suffering, and I think a lot of people see that, and I think a lot of people are suffering, and so I think that does really amp people up. And I think that is really part of like the grassroots movement. Like right now I'm uninsured and I care about the climate, and that brought me all the way out here from Seattle. I quit my job to come volunteer, and so I think there's not many other candidates that can really pull that off in any of the same, I guess no one quite has the same passion.
You know, I want to take a quick detour, and OG Status Coup viewers will know. A couple months ago, I was actually in Seattle covering the homelessness crisis because I felt, and I know like local media there maybe has covered it a little bit, but I felt I don't even call it gentrification. I just call it economic terrorism. I mean, Jeff Bezos, Amazon have literally just created a tale of two cities on steroids. And it's not just Seattle. I mean, San Francisco, LA, Portland, San Jose. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And in Seattle, you could speak to it because you're from there. You know, in other cities, kind of like you see homeless people under bridges or outside a major train station. But in Seattle, it was like, oh, these brand new developments, gentrified apartments, and like there's homeless tent cities right next to it. It was just immersed in, there was no separation like in other cities. And I thought to myself, meanwhile, CNBC, CNN, MSNBC are talking about, you know, the booming economy and the stock market is up. And I guess that, like, we're talking about Seattle, but that brings us to Iowa, that brings us to this election. Are you getting that feedback from people that you knock on doors like, well, you know, the economy's doing good. I don't feel, when I talk to people, that's not the response I get, that like things are booming. We don't need to change direction.
I actually haven't gotten anyone saying anything like that. But as a quick tangent, I think Andrew Yang talks about that really, really well. He has talked about the creator of the GDP, and just the creator of the GDP specifically advised against using the GDP as a sort of metric on how well our society is doing, because the stock market is not the economy. The stock market is a reflection of parts of the economy, but for example, when we have people losing their jobs, people that are working 3 jobs, people that aren't making living wages, I don't think that means that we are doing well as a society, and I think a lot of people know that and experience it, maybe just at an intuitive level, but I think a lot of these numbers are sort of obfuscating the problems that we have, and I think when we sort of hide behind or maybe prop up the stock market as a reflection of how well the economy is doing, I think that really does tear away, and I don't think a lot of people buy into that, because I think there are a lot of people suffering, but specifically in Iowa, to go to your question, I haven't actually ran into too much of that. I have run into a few people that aren't insured and are having just some general problems that I think Bernie could help address, but no one has specifically talked to me about sort of the stock market's doing well, but I haven't received any of that benefits that the stock market's rising. It just hasn't been a conversation.
And a reminder, make sure, I don't know how many people are watching, press that like button if you haven't. Thumbs up button. You wouldn't believe what YouTube is doing to us. We're like hidden in a cave. So the more people that press the thumbs up button, the more people will see this. Sign up as a member, statuscoup.com/join. I wanted to ask you because, I mean, to me, all I hear about is electability. All I hear about is like socialism will never work, blah, 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 blah. But like I just saw an ad Bernie put out today, basically taking Donald Trump's words. He just said, like, yeah, I'll put entitlements and Social Security on the table. And like those ads don't come off like a scary boogeyman, a communist, like the Republicans are trying to make him, like Joe Biden will probably eventually start going the communism route. It just seems like somebody kind of out for the working man or woman. Are you seeing any in your interactions, people like, oh no, you know, he's a socialism, because even people in my life, like older people I know, are like, oh yeah, if he makes the general, you know, they'll brand him as a communist and people won't elect a socialist. But that's not what I see. Even when I talk to non-Bernie supporters, they don't really view him as that.
The only time I've really experienced that was when it was someone that was already a Trump supporter. They said, I'm not going to vote for a socialist. And you kind of just say, okay, well, thank you for your time and I'm going to go. But kind of going to one of the points I originally made, every single person I've canvassed, whether they're Biden, Yang, Tulsi, Steyer, or whatever, has not had like a shred of hesitation behind or about getting behind Bernie when he is the nominee. I think that's just not an issue people really care about. I think people seem to be kind of done with all these labels, and you just really start engaging on policies. You talk about how we can help improve your life, how we can really bring some climate justice into our world, and yeah, people just aren't like, you don't need to engage on a label, and people aren't really worried about that label, at least from what I've seen. And again, small sample size. I haven't talked to everyone in Iowa. But yeah, I haven't seen it to be an issue at all.
And you talked about you quit your job in Seattle, came down here. Obviously, there's stakes involved for you. You don't just quit your job and drive halfway through the country. Talk about your life, whatever you're comfortable sharing. What's inspiring you about Bernie, his movement, that made you want to give up your job and come here?
Yeah. Well, I just think that Bernie is going to be the best way to end a lot of unnecessary suffering. And I think that's really important to me. I had grown up in San Francisco, and just a lot of my friends were put into really unfortunate situations. Their parents lost their jobs. Their parents had to move. These parents didn't do anything wrong. They didn't make mistakes. And it was really unfortunate. And then when you look at like the UN report that's saying we have less than 5 years, I see that as we have one presidency to actually do something about climate change. Like we're starting to hit these feedback loops. We see it in Australia, we see it in Brazil, we see it in California. We're having these massive wildfires, which are releasing more carbon, which is going to make it hotter, which is going to make it drier, which is going to lead to another fire. And these feedback loops, I think there's something like 16 that are like well acknowledged and defined in the community. And if we hit those to a point where we basically start falling down the slippery slope, then there is not going to be much recourse for us. We are going to get stuck in this cycle of trying to fix what's been broken by a hurricane or by a fire and not be able to put money into actually addressing the problem, into decarbonizing our infrastructure. And so we really need to do it now, or we are going to lose control of this loop. And so for me, it really is like we need to get out there and we need to get Bernie elected so that we can save the planet. And then you look at all of his other policies and it's like, yes, these are all awesome and great. And one of my favorite things, and this isn't quite as much of a policy, but he really does talk about using the U.S. military not only to draw down their carbon, but to use them almost as a force of peace. And there's some crazy statistic where I think if you counted the military as a country, it's like top 5, top 10 carbon producers.
Top 1. The United States Pentagon is the biggest contributor to carbon emissions on planet Earth.
Yeah, and so that is insane. And I think if we have a chance to save the climate, every country needs to do something, but the U.S. has so much more to do. I think per capita we have twice as much emissions as any other. I think China is the next closest, and we are twice as much as them per capita. And so even while they are creating a lot more emissions, they're still developing and they have way, way more people. But I think we have a lot more potential to really draw down our carbon and make that big impact. And so I think like the climate justice needs to not necessarily start in America, but America needs to be a powerhouse in that movement.
I'll let you get back. One last question.
Yeah.
I kind of want to take the audience like inside a little bit. Jamal, if you could pan a little bit to show them. Like, can you kind of talk about like what goes on here? Is there like a meeting in the morning among volunteers? Like this is the talking point today, or we need to focus on this today? You know, what's the camaraderie like? I assume most people are working like round the clock, some double shifts, some are phone banking for a few hours, then they're going out. Like, what is a day like here, or is every day pretty different?
Every day is definitely different, but the camaraderie is strong. Like, you talk to a single person for the first time and you're already friends, which has been really, really awesome. But for me as a volunteer, I guess the first day I got here, they just immediately sent me out canvassing. So you come in and there's someone that will tell you what to do, and you download an app and you sort of go through we sort of have like a script of saying like, just trying to draw out voters. And then some days I was going through and phone banking, and on the weekdays we have less canvassing shifts, obviously because people are, well, might not be obvious, but a lot of people are not home. And so we might be phone banking, but a lot of the times I would end up making yard signs or just finding some way to be useful, cleaning, because it really is sort of like if I'm not doing it, then one of the staff might have to do it. And so it is sort of finding any odd job that you can do if you're not out canvassing. But the last few weeks have been really awesome while I've been here, because we've been getting out-of-state volunteers, and so we'll have like 20 people come in from Chicago, excuse me. I think they were with an organization called Mikva, which was all about just getting young people into politics. But there's all these groups coming in, and we're getting them out to canvass, we're getting them to phone bank, and we're just finding if they're not comfortable doing either of those, we'll have them build signs, we'll find something that they can do. Like, everyone has a skill that they can contribute. But the overall day is usually been somewhere from, we're going to start canvassing at 3, and maybe you'll take that double shift, or maybe you'll come back and phone bank because you're too cold. Maybe you'll build signs, but it really is just working, trying to find something you can be useful. And then when we hit that 3 to 6 p.m. window, we'll start canvassing a lot. But a lot of the days do end up being very different from each other, and some of the canvassing shifts are different as well. Like when I first got here, it was far enough away from the caucus that we were still doing a little bit of voter ID and persuasion conversations, but now that we're just like 4 days away, time is blended together a lot. But now that we're 4 days away, we're really focusing on getting out the caucus. And so we're going to our strong supporters and we're saying, here's your location, do you have a plan on how to get there? And just having them walk through a plan. I'm going to drive, I'm going to take one of my friends, really sort of, I don't know the exact science behind it, but it will basically make it a lot harder to procrastinate. You're sort of just eliminating a few of those mental barriers, but we are just getting out our information. And like today, we're doing a phone bank over on the left to recruit some people to canvass and come to some of our events, but other days we'll be calling them to make sure they have all their information or if they have any questions. And so some of the overall roles are the same, but when you're in that specific role, you're going to be doing slightly different priorities. And so there just is not a single day that's the same. And personally, I love that. I think it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, it's really just kind of been a blur at this point. All of the canvassers and the staff are just working as hard as they can, which is, I find, super inspiring. That inspires the other volunteers where they're working 12-hour days, and some of us and the other volunteers are also working like 12-hour days, and we're all really just in it to win it. And it's really nice. Like, it's just nice to see that other people share my passion to just make the world a better place. But yeah, it's sort of been the overall somewhat defined schedule that then changes slightly day to day.
I lied, one more. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I want to know from people, progressives were very dejected in 2016. Like, what do you even imagine? Like, if Bernie Sanders wins on Monday night, like, what do you imagine that room being like? Headquarters, field offices being like? I mean, joy would be like an understatement, but like, what do you think the feeling would be? Like, because, I mean, progressives have had some wins, like AOC was victorious. You've had lower level progressive candidates victorious, attorney generals, district attorneys, but like, if Bernie Sanders were to win the Iowa caucus, it's kind of a statement that, like, it's not over, but like they say the walls are closing in on Trump. Like, that would begin a real sign to the establishment that, your time's soon approaching. What are your thoughts on what it would be like?
I've tried to imagine it, and it's hard to imagine. But like right now, we're 4 days out from the caucus, and there's so much electricity in the air. Like, you can really feel the excitement and the energy. And I think it has you just slowly been progressing. Like, everyone is really, really excited. We're having Bernie signs go up everywhere. And so when I do think about like what is that win on caucus night going to be, I think it's just going to be absolutely crazy. Everyone is going to be so excited because when we win Iowa with like a good percentage, that's going to make the rest of the fight much easier. I think because we're doing so well in New Hampshire, we're doing so well in Nevada, we're doing well in Texas, as you said earlier, we're doing well in California. We have the infrastructure set up to take advantage of the momentum that we're going to get in Iowa. And so I think because we've all been working so hard, and there's staff members in the room right behind me that have been working day to day, just constant hours. And I think there's just been this sort of boiling of pressure, of excitement. And I think that night when we win, there is going to be an explosion of hype and just love. Like, I think we all are. We've like Bernie talks about solidarity a lot, but you do feel that solidarity when you're here, and I think there is that almost an electric solidarity that people are ready to celebrate because we put in the work and we are going to win. So,
thank you, sir. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for the privilege.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to let others if they want. So, what's really interesting to me about all this is, and now I'm allowed to look at my phone. Hold on. So we got 700 something people watching. So keep pressing that like button. If you are not a Status Coup member, please sign up today. statuscoup.com/join. You could sign up for as low as $5 a month. We are about 20 members away from 900 members. It's like Bernie's campaign. It's like grassroots politics, grassroots media. You could literally fund this for as low as $5 a month. Unlike some other outlets, we're actually out here. We're in the field, in the trenches. So appreciate everybody who's been signing up. So let me kind of give you a preview of what's coming over the next few days and what I'm already hearing. So whenever I get out to the field, it's kind of just chaos and making it up as I go along. So I already have text messages that are going back and forth to interview other activists. I specifically want to interview people that are canvassing like day of. We came to the Des Moines office here to kind of show you inside what it looks like, speak with some people, but I also want to be speaking with people who like just got back from canvassing, because I think it's really instructive to see like what responses are they getting 4 days before the Iowa caucus. Tomorrow will be 3 days before the Iowa caucus. Before I came here, I was actually speaking with some canvassers that came from Miami. So they must be really into Bernie Sanders if they're going from Miami, which is wonderful weather this time of year, up to Iowa, which is not so wonderful. And they were telling me that and I haven't verified this, but just so you know, like what kind of stuff goes on, they were telling me that they went into a meat market with mostly Latino staffers, because believe it or not, it's not a huge Latino population in Iowa, but it's growing. And Bernie's campaign has been targeting Latino voters, particularly voters in the Latino community that a lot of them wouldn't even know there is a caucus, much less ever have caucused before. So it's part of that kind of that strategy of bringing out new voters, first-time voters, in expanding the electorate, not just relying on people who have caucused before, but getting new people to come out, which some people have said is a risky strategy. I think it's risky not to do it. if you just depend on the traditional caucus goer, you're not going to win. You have to expand the electorate, not just in Iowa, but in other states. And what I was told was there's something called satellite caucuses in Iowa. So basically, satellite caucuses are sites that have never been opened before. There's never been a caucus at these sites, but they are adding new caucus sites, particularly for, specific groups, specific communities. So there's, for example, a satellite site that's going to be specifically for Latino Iowans, and there's going to be Spanish-speaking precinct chairs to make it easier for them to understand what's going on. So some Bernie canvassers just went to this Latino area, and they didn't even know that there was a satellite caucus site near them. They are under the impression that they have to drive an hour and 45 minutes to caucus on Monday night. So who got this satellite caucus site approved? Who got this satellite caucus site approved? Again, specifically in this area near Perry, Iowa. Perry, Iowa is about 45 minutes from Des Moines. So the caucus site for specifically Latino voters was approved or pushed for by the Biden campaign. So why is it that these Latinos in this area don't know it exists? You could make the decision yourself, but some campaigns, instead of trying to turn people out, try to suppress or depress turnout. So, take it for what you want. I'm going to look more into that. But I'm starting to hear more kind of stories like that as I get text messages from activists, emails from activists. It's hard to go through each one of them. It's even harder to verify any of it because we're driving around and going from interview to interview. But needless to say, there's always, whether it's Iowa, New Hampshire, anywhere, shenanigans, misinformation that goes on from different campaigns. I haven't really heard much of that, like from Bernie's campaign ever. I've mostly heard it from establishment campaigns. So we'll see what happens. But tomorrow, I don't have the list in front of me, there's quite a few events. Jane Sanders, Bernie Sanders' wife, has been going around. I believe she's going around with Michael Moore for a few events tomorrow. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, who recently endorsed Bernie Sanders, is coming into town. So is Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib will be here. Obviously, Bernie Sanders stuck on jury duty. I have not at all even watched any of the impeachment, to tell you the truth. Too busy with the caucus. But Bernie can't be here, I believe. Subject to change depending on how the impeachment trial goes. I believe he's going to be here this weekend, but it really just depends. When does impeachment, go into recess or whatever, so he could fly out here. So he's really been depending on his wife, surrogates, the congresswomen that are coming in. I know there is a Unidos con Bernie event tonight, pretty soon actually, a Unidos con Bernie event, which goes into the Latino outreach strategy that the Bernie Sanders campaign has been doing. And in addition to the events, that each campaign has, there's obviously going to be last minute things that happen. There's probably going to be last minute attack ads that go out. Biden's going to pretend they're not from him. I have nothing to do with the super PAC. So there will be attack ads that we need to cover. I'm sure there's going to be last minute dark money spending that we will be covering. And we're going to try to interview as many people as possible. Obviously we would love to get interviews with Michael Moore and Jane Sanders, if you're watching, and the congresswomen. That would be great. But I also think it's what we try to do with Status Coup. It might sound cheesy, but it's legitimately what we want to do, is just hand the microphone to the people. Give the microphone to the people. Because I think it's much more illuminating for the audience around the country, but also a lot of you watching around the world, to hear from actual people, hear from actual Bernie volunteers, Bernie canvassers. We're also going to try to go to a Biden event or two. Shockingly, isn't this bizarre? Jen could tell you, because she's been trying to find out the information. Joe Biden's campaign is sending out emails to the media describing events. He has 3 events today without sharing where they are or the time. I literally have been covering politics for full time, about 5 years. I have never, ever seen a campaign send out lists of 3 events with no address or time. Like, I looked through my email to see, like, are we missing something? Did they send out another email? No. Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been trying to see, where are these things? Like, are they having events glow in the dark and they don't want the media to be there? I mean, I've heard reports that Joe Biden events are not turning out the people. And, you know, the media in 2016 tried to poo-poo that, like crowd size doesn't equal votes. Well, I can tell you one thing. In 2016, I covered Bernie, I covered Trump, I covered Hillary Clinton. Crowd size actually does indicate some things. It might not totally translate to how many votes you're going to get, but it does translate to energy on the ground. When people make a commitment to actually take time out of their day, many of them with kids, working multiple jobs, to come see you, generally speaking, you know, a lot of times they're window shopping. They want to know, want to hear from you, but there's a large chunk of them that are committed to coming out to vote for you. So the fact that Biden is having a lot of smaller events, there was recently stories coming out that his campaign was relying on nuns to write handwritten letters to Catholics. I'm not poo-pooing religion or nuns, but relying on nuns to write handwritten letters for you, targeting veterans halls and religious folk. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not exactly kind of like a multi-pronged attack. You know, that's kind of like going for like the lowest common denominator for a candidate like Biden, as opposed to like trying to get the young people on board, trying to get Latinos on board, trying to get, you know, expand the electorate. So we'll see. I also think we should talk about this a little bit, and Jen has been researching. Yes, keep on the super chats coming. Welcome new member Jim. I just saw a new member sign up. I don't know what number we're at now, but keep the new members sign-ups coming on. As I was going live, I think we had 875 new members. So now we got, I don't know how many that is. It's hard to interview people and keep tabs of the members. But honestly, membership is how we're funding these trips. Full disclosure, our car today cost us $900 for 6 days because we had to get full insurance on the car because it's Iowa. And if we, God forbid, get in an accident, I don't want to be screwed financially. So cars are expensive, hotels are expensive, and we're staying at like a, you know, pretty cruddy hotel. Flights are expensive, all that. So that's what your membership is supporting. It's supporting our costs for reporting in the field. It's also, as we grow, going to support hiring other reporters to do this kind of in the trenches work. But the thing that's interesting about this Iowa caucus, and it's a little different than the last Iowa caucus, they're actually reporting not just like one number. They're reporting several numbers. And they say they're reporting several numbers because the DNC wanted it to be more transparent. I don't know about that. When I hear DNC in the same sentence as transparency, I don't know if I trust that. But let me break it down for you. So there is the first, I don't know the exact wording, but the first round of voting, right? Then you have, if your candidate does not cross the 15% threshold, the voters are released for that candidate, and they are allowed to vote for a viable candidate who has reached 15%. So that would be the final round. So there's 2 rounds. So in past Iowa caucuses, they just reported the final number. In this caucus, they are actually reporting the first number, so the first round of voting. They're going to report the results for that. And they're going to then report the final round of voting. So you're going to get the first round of voting's results, you're going to get the final round of voting's results, and then you're going to get a state delegate allocation. So again, sorry if this is too complicated, let me just break it down for dummies. You're going to get the winners at the start of the race, the final winner, and then you're going to get the state delegate allocation. Honestly, none of the Bernie volunteers would say this on camera because, of course, we don't want to piss off the Iowa voters. But in the grand scheme of things, Iowa doesn't actually have that many delegates. Like, on the math, it's not like the biggest thing. Like California and Texas have far more delegates than Iowa. However, it's a real sign. It is a real declaration of momentum if you win Iowa. So Iowa is not necessarily about the math. It's more about like making a statement as a campaign that you're in this to win. So again, not as much about math, but it is about momentum. So a win in Iowa could help you then win New Hampshire. If Bernie wins Iowa and New Hampshire, it's not definite, but he would have a whole lot of momentum going into Nevada. If any candidate wins the first 3 states, I don't know how any other candidate is going to make a case that they're the most electable. I mean, you can't be the most electable if you're not actually winning. We're talking about Joe Biden in that case. So what's going to be interesting about this split reporting thing is it might show, let's say for argument's sake, Bernie Sanders does not win the Iowa caucus. It might actually show, let's say he doesn't win the Iowa caucus and Biden is declared the winner. It might actually show that on the first ballot, it's not that Joe Biden was the strongest candidate. It's not that Joe Biden actually got the most votes, like on the first vote. It could show, the second and final round could show Amy Klobuchar's supporters put him over the top. So you'll actually be able to see that differential. You'll be able to see who got the most votes on the first ballot, and then you'll also be able to see on the final ballot which candidates' supporters moved over. So the same could be said for Bernie Sanders too. Bernie might not get on the first ballot the most amount of votes, but on the final ballot, if enough Yang supporters, Tulsi supporters, possibly Warren supporters move over to Bernie. So it's interesting that you're going to be able to see both. Theoretically, I think that's actually a good thing, that you're going to be able to see, well, who got the most votes on the first ballot, and then how did candidates, supporters moving over to other candidates? What was the count on that? But the reason I'm a little suspicious is I just don't trust the Democratic National Committee. If you've been following our reporting, we interviewed Nina Turner earlier this week. Nina Turner always provides the fire. Our interview has been picked up no less by the New York Times, the Washington Post, Real Clear Politics, The Hill, Breitbart, Daily Caller, even the terrible ones are picking it up. And why they picked it up is Nina Turner talking about this trust issue with the DNC. Tom Perez, the DNC chair, has nominated a who's who of Wall Street, of K Street, lobbyists, fossil fuel people, hedge fund people, consultants, and people who have in very recent history just been public Bernie haters. He's nominated them on the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is very important at the Democratic National Convention. Barney Frank, he's nominated to the Rules Committee. Not a big fan of Bernie Sanders. John Podesta, if you've read some emails from the past, talked about where are we going to stick the knife in to Bernie Sanders. I mean, figuratively. I don't want to start conspiracies. He wasn't calling to stab Bernie Sanders. But politically, as Hillary Clinton's campaign chair, he was caught in those WikiLeaks emails talking about where are we going to stick the knife. So he's on a committee. There's so many people that are public, like Bernie Sanders is their public enemy number one, and they have not been shy about that are being put on committees. So I asked Nina Turner, like, obviously we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. You got to win the Iowa caucus. You got to win New Hampshire. You got to have the most pledged delegates. But, I mean, if Bernie Sanders has the most pledged delegates going into the convention, but not the number to clinch, do you trust the committee that Tom Perez has nominated? She did not mince words. If we had the technology, I'd play the clip for you, but we don't. She basically said, the DNC, Tom Perez should be ashamed of himself. They should be ashamed of themselves and embarrassed for what they're doing. They haven't learned anything. And she said, if the DNC, she didn't say Tom Perez's name, but we know who she's talking about, if they think that they are going to pull a 2016 in 2020 and get away with it, her words, got another thing coming. So that was Nina Turner. And I have heard that Bernie Sanders' campaign is prepared in the event that there is shenanigans. So that's all I can tell you. They are prepared. So Before I wrap, let me take a few questions, comments, concerns. Again, we're trying to grow, so if you got $5 a month, sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Another great way that you could know when we're live, because YouTube doesn't always notify you, shall I restate that? YouTube probably won't notify you when we're live, is join our text list. All you got to do is text 474747. Stick with me. Text 474747 and then type in COUP. COUP. And what that will do is immediately you'll be added to our text list, and we're going to be texting out when we're live here, because we want to make sure everybody knows when we're live, because we get so many people that get a text and their comment will be, oh, I didn't get a notification from YouTube, but I saw the text. So that's the point. Like, we want to make sure you know when we're live, because YouTube, for a lot of reasons, isn't notifying you. It doesn't cost you anything. Just text 474747 and enter COUP. That will get you added. Also, join our email list. Go to statuscoup.com, enter your email there, because we're going to be sending out emails when we're live too. And do it for, actually, you know what? I will get a little pity party here. I am doing a pity membership call. And here's the pity membership call. Jamal, come over here for a second. So this is my pity membership call. For those of you that don't know, this is Jamal Jones. He's been doing some freelance camera work and editing for us. So I want to get a pity membership. People should sign up at statuscoup.com/join, because currently, I would normally be modest, but hey, I'll keep it real. Currently, I have a pinched nerve in my neck, and I could barely lift my right arm without severe pain, as you saw, because you've had to carry my luggage.
Yeah. So please, give to Status Coup $5 a month. We're really working hard trying to get you this news that the mainstream corporate news isn't gonna. They're not going out of their way to get this to people. We are. So,
But wait.
Yeah.
No. If it's not awkward enough, if you don't want to sign up as a member at a pity for me, right? If you don't want to sign up as a member at a pity for me, by the way, the pinched nerve in my neck, I'm just warning you. If you guys ever consider getting a Theragun, do you know what a Theragun is? It's this new massage gun out there. It costs a lot of money. So my girlfriend and I were in a store that had a Theragun. So it's not her fault, I told her to. She put it into my neck and shoulder blade, and it has 3 different levels. And I told her to put it on the highest level. And it's literally like it's like a drill. And it feels really good in the moment. So she had it in my neck and my shoulder blade, and it was like all these muscle knots I have are going. And literally the next day, like, I had my neck and shoulder blade were just throbbing. And for the last 4 or 5 days, like, I literally can only lift my hands so much. But if you don't want to sign up as a member out of pity for me, sign up as a member out of pity for Jen, the co-founder of Status Coup, because Jen is actually sick. But she is in the super chat right now, manning the fort. She does not feel well. She could explain what's wrong with her. I don't really know. But she is not feeling well. But we're 4 days from the Iowa caucus, so we're gonna report whether I could lift my arm, whether she could stay awake. We're just going on full journalistic, what did the guy say? Electricity. Exhilaration. So statuscoup.com/join, become a member. We're also doing some behind the scenes footage. Jamal has been shooting some behind the scenes stuff when we're in the field, so you could kind of see what we're doing, like between interviews, who we're talking to. We're kind of multitasking here, so it's good. I want to ask you too, first time in Iowa. Just had deep dish pizza in Chicago for the first time today. But what are your thoughts seeing kind of the days before the caucus? You're usually behind the scenes, but kind of seeing, the energy. Like, we're here now. We're going to go interview. You already heard. I was talking to some volunteers on the phone before we came here, like the excitement, people like going all around, like knocking on doors, speaking with the Latino community. What does it say to you, like the excitement you're seeing?
Oh man, it's lovely to see. Like, I didn't actually know that there was so much passion for Bernie out here, and that's just refreshing, because usually when you hear about areas like this, it's just like just a struggle to get any Democratic votes or any, attention for these candidates. But it's like Bernie is a different candidate. He really is somebody who the people feel passionate about. Like I've never heard of volunteers coming out of states to like work for somebody when they should be working a job, or they may be going through some struggles themselves. That just speaks to what it means to be part of a movement that's bigger than yourself. And I think that's what Bernie inspires in people, and that's very good to see. It makes me, think about volunteering when I hear that, because it just sounds like it's worth it.
Somebody just said Jordan's got a black guy carrying his stuff. Okay, don't you start. I can't lift my arm. I would ask somebody glow in the dark to carry my stuff. Anyway.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, it's super refreshing. It's not just the East Coast or West Coast thing. Bernie has influence, and he has, really grabbed the people all over this country. So I really can't wait to see the results of this caucus, and I want to see this campaign go as far as it can. President Sanders.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. So basically, the truth is, I have nothing planned. I'm probably going to be, after we eat, scheduling some things. Again, there's a bunch of events tomorrow, Saturday. We don't know when Bernie's going to be here because of impeachment. I'm also going to be looking if Joe Biden's campaign will actually send out the addresses for their events, because they're literally sending out emails to the press. Biden is going here, here, and here. No time, no date. It's almost like they know no one is coming and they don't want the press to see. I've never seen, in 5 years, I've never seen a campaign send out events with no event. Sometimes they'll say closed press. Sometimes they'll say closed press, meaning no press. But you'll know where it is. Like, you'll know what time it's at. You'll know where it is. It'll just be like no press. This is literally Biden is doing an event here, here, but the here is just the city. There's no address and there's no time. It is bizarre. Bizarre. This is the most electable, by the way. So definitely sign up for our email list. Definitely sign up for our text list. We don't know. Like, something could come across. I could get a message in 2 hours with somebody I want to interview, and we might go live right then and there later, or we might wait till tomorrow. There's no schedule. It's just like on the fly, just like a campaign is. It's very on the fly. So we'll be live intermittently as things come up. What you could do, if you can't become a member financially, we get it, no problem if you can't support us financially. But what you can do, share these videos, spread the word that Status Coup is on the ground. We won't just be covering Bernie. We will go to some Biden things, and boy, will that be fun. Maybe some Warren things, maybe some Klobuchar, Yang. We're not exclusively going to be on the Bernie trail, but really what we're trying to do is be in the trenches and show, like, on the ground what's going on, people knocking on doors, what they're hearing, the responses that are getting. If there's any shenanigans going on, we'll try to get you information on that. Obviously, try to verify it as best as we can. And we really appreciate all the support. I see the super chats. Sorry, I'm not reading them out, but I was trying to focus on the interviews. So thanks for the super chats. We also have, just for this trip in specific, if you want to support this trip in specific, even, a lot of members who pay per month also want to support specific trips. So you could do it at PayPal. That's paypal.me/status coup. That's paypal.me/status coup. And before I end, and I'm probably making all of these people sick hearing my voice, so I'm wrapping up soon. Let me take a few questions, comments, concerns. Call Biden a pervert? I'm not calling him a pervert. You did. Let's see. Biden has to give free shirts away just to generate a hint of interest. Oh, boy. Send Biden a wire. His campaign is on fire. Burn. There are more people where Jordan is now than there are at Biden events. Honestly, I can't confirm if there's more people here or at Biden events, because Biden's campaign is not letting journalists know where his... Jen, am I making this up? Jen, could you confirm to me that Biden's campaign is sending out emails to reporters with no information where the events are or the times? I just want people to know I'm not mocking him. I'm not making it up. He's literally sending out event details to the press with no details. It's bizarre. Jamal, blink if you need help. I have no idea. Haha, LMAO. All right. Oh, did we get a 99.99 super chat? Whoever did that, thank you so much. That is so kind. Oh, this was Alex G. Alex G. 99.99. That is amazing. Thank you for that. Jen can confirm what I was saying. Can we have 810 likes? Would love it. I'm serious. The man is a creep, and we need to learn to say it over and over. Okay. He's talking about Biden. Yeah. Biden's playing 78 RPM records in his covered wagon. Oh, boy. All right. Anybody have any questions, or they just want to mock Joe Biden? I mean, I'll stay on if you want to mock Biden. But how convenient, easy to suppress the Hispanic vote. I am going to look into that, because if I find evidence that they are trying to suppress the Hispanic vote, you better believe we're going to break that story. So we'll have to investigate that as best as we can. Jordan just added my email. Thank you for signing up to our email list. You could stay in a hotel tonight. That's the plan. Come to Boone. We'll take you to the local La Carreta restaurant. Ooh, La Carreta. GE, $2. Try an acupressure mat and pillow for your pain. Honestly, right now, the best thing I could do for my pain is ice. I need to, I have an ice pack, but I just need to find a freezer. I don't think we have a freezer in our room. So I got to find a freezer, because the only thing that kind of takes the edge off, in addition to like Tylenol, is ice. So. And I got a massage in the airport, because our connecting flight got canceled. So I got a massage in the airport. You didn't pay for it. I put it on my personal card. And this guy just beat the living hell out of me. And he was like, "Oh my God, man, it is a mess in your neck and shoulder." And I was like literally screaming like a little child. I was like, no, too hard. And he's like, no, I got to get it out. But hopefully I can move tomorrow. Okay, and Jen's putting the PayPal link in there. She's putting the GoFundMe link in there. Actually, I was told no heat. It's really inflamed, so heat would make it worse, I was told. And by the way, do it for Jen. She's not feeling well. Sorry to blow up Jen's spot, but she's not feeling well. I'm not feeling well. But sometimes you just got to say, fuck it. I'll sleep when I'm dead, right? I'll ice when I'm dead. I won't be dead for a long time, I hope. But so... All right, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you for all the super chats. Thank you to our new members who are signing up. Remember, honestly, we're showing you what we're gonna do. I don't have the map, but like we've been all over this country for the last year and a half on small dollar memberships, not donations, because this is a business. Small dollar memberships. Sign up, statuscoup.com/join. You could become a member as low as $5 a month. Believe it or not, $5 memberships actually make a big difference, because the $5, you could become a member higher than that. We have different levels. You'll see the options at statuscoup.com/join. But more people have been signing up at $5, because, everybody's got a gazillion expenses. So a lot of people can only do $5, but it adds up. When you get, I can't do math, but when you're getting like 50 new people at $5, that adds up. It really makes a big difference. So sign up, statuscoup.com/join. Every membership sign up that I see today will alleviate the pain right now in my shoulder and in Jen's body, because she's a little ill. So sign up for the email, sign up for the text, and we will be live again pretty soon as I book more things. So thank you for watching. Peace out.